everybody, and welcome to another episode of Dungeon Masters Guild Design Dash. If this is your first time tuning in, Dungeon Masters Guild is a platform where you can publish your own D&D ideas for fun and profit. And on Design Dash, we challenge 3 of our best-selling writers to design some D&D live in only 15 minutes. I'm one of your hosts, Lysa Penrose. I'm the community manager of Dungeon Masters Guild, and today you notice there's a stranger over in that box. My co-host is one of our guild adepts, James Haeck. James, introduce yourself. Yeah, oh no. Dash shenanigans have already begun happening. Willy has transformed into a word version of his name. Oh, he's back. Okay. Just doing some just doing some weird tricks to like throw off the competition. Uh all right, well, yeah, let's introduce our contestants. Our first contestant here is Willy, the magical transforming Willy. Willy, who are you? How might folks know you? Oh no! If we can all pause for a second. Folks in the chit chat are letting me know that everything is muted. I'm sorry, folks. The joys of live. Yes, thank you for letting me know. Let's see. Ba, ba, ba. How about now? Lovely host James, can you say something?
Hi, can everyone hear me? I'm broadcasting to you live from the internet.
I'm seeing wibbly wobbly lines.
Okay.
I'm going to wait for chat to confirm. Yay, everyone is celebrating. Okay, you know
Yay!
what? Let's do this again. We're
all
got
back.
this. You heard me. You don't need me to repeat.
Yeah.
But let's hear again from the lovely James.
Yes, I'm James Haeck. I'm one of the guild adepts and lead writer at D&D Beyond, and I am your guest co-host for this episode of Dungeon Masters Guild Design Dash. And we have some really wonderful people here with us. Willy, we started with you last time. Let's go right to you.
Sure. I'm Willy. A few of you might know me, who knows? But I made clowns at one point, and then I stopped making clowns, but I might be making more clowns later. So we'll see what happens.
And Willy, what did you do to prepare yourself for the challenges of the Design Dash arena?
Oh. Leanne and I did a few drills. I tried to answer every single creative prompt I could. This morning I watched the penultimate episode of The Dark Crystal, and I did a quick skim of the Monster Manual, which I will be using to right.
Very nice. And you got practice introducing yourself. So great. You're welcome. Next up, we have Christopher Walz.
Yeah, I had 2 cups of coffee this morning. So
Ooh.
that's so that, and did a little bit of role-playing game like manual reading for some other stuff earlier this morning as well, just to get into the general flow of things, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So woefully underprepared compared to Willy.
I'm seeing some folks in chat who are like, my boy Chris. So some folks know you. What are some titles people might know you for?
Let's see. I have a decent amount of things on the guild, on the DM's guild. Midnight Revelry was my first release. I've also done a lot of work for kids, for children's RPGs, An Ogre and His Cake, and then a follow-up that was a collection of a bunch of writers, including Emily, who is on one side of me that I don't know which way that's appropriate to point, but she's on one side of me. She had an adventure in there as well.
Nice.
Wonderful.
So yeah.
You mentioned you do a lot of writing for kids. How would you describe your design style, and what do you think we'll see from you today in the arena?
I think I have a pretty broad style, really. I mean, I have a lot of interest in a lot of different genres. I think there's sort of a misconception that if you do things for children or like all ages audiences, that kind of like your brain space is always set in that. And I don't necessarily agree with that. And I think that a children's writer can also do like Lovecraftian horror if they want to. No reason not to.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
So yeah, pretty broad.
That.
Yeah.
I feel like we should ask Willy the same question, actually, before we go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I know you mentioned something about clowns. I want to know more now. Yeah, can't hear you, Willy.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I wanted to extend the same question to you. You mentioned something about what you'd worked on when you were introducing yourself, but what specifically, for people who might want to know, what's some cool bits of design you've done that they might find in the DMs Guild?
Okay, right. So we started off last year with the big book, the Book of House, which had a whole bunch of different house rules, races, classes, and a whole bunch of like nice little lore bits that you could play with.
Cool.
And then since then, we also expanded upon the College of Culinary, which was in there with culinary weapons. So, just kind of expanding your repertoire with not Guy Fieri, Man of Flames, wink, wink. And then the last big thing that we released was Necromancy Can Be Good. So, it's just a variety of whatever sounds interesting. How can we make this challenging for us to make? And then going from there.
This is delightful.
I want to boop people with spoons.
Yeah, that seems like it would fit perfectly into Troll Skull Manor and Waterdeep Dragon Heist, actually.
It's a lot of fun to play.
Yeah.
And finally, among our contestants, returning to the Design Dash arena, you voted for her to come back, is Emily Smith, already catering to the audience, I see.
Yes. Yeah, hey, I'm Emily. This is my cat, Munch. She is a big baby, and if I put her down, she will start meowing, so I have to do this.
Look at her.
But yeah, I'm Emily J.E.A. Smith on Twitter and pretty much everywhere else. I've headed up a couple anthologies, the 12 Days of Midwinter and Behold Liar's Night over the last few months that are on DM's Guild, as well as some of my CCCs for Adventurers League are up, which is great, and I've got a few more things coming through the pipe that I'm really excited about. And yes, this cat is the real reason to be my friend. I put pictures of her everywhere. She's very gentle and loving.
So this is your second time in the Design Dash arena. What would you say you learned from last month that you're going to use in your time in the arena this month?
Yeah, so I learned, everyone kept saying last month that 15 minutes is not a lot of time. But I didn't really internalize it until it was actually not a lot of time. And basically, you just gotta vomit words out onto the page continuously, nonstop, until you get something there. So fewer details, no checks, just like get the overarching story, I guess.
And honestly, I gotta say, good advice for writing in general. I get stuck in my own head all the time.
Yeah, just get stuff on paper. So
let the editor sort it out.
Valid.
So James, as a guild adept, lead writer of D&D Beyond, writer of a bunch of D&D books, but having not been in Design Dash before, what advice do you have for our three contestants before I announce the theme?
The only advice I can give you here is be weird, be imaginative. No idea is bad.
Yeah.
Whatever comes to your mind, the time is limited, so work fast, and don't discount anything that comes into your brain.
All right. Is everybody ready?
Let's do it!
Yeah, so. The theme for the first Design Dash of 2020, sirens in the background, real extreme.
Yes!
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm gonna go.
I thought sirens was the actual theme. Like,
yeah, I was like, wow,
that's a good theme.
Yeah, the theme we're expressing in sound effects. But our theme for the first Design Dash of 2020 is blank versus blank, classic rivalries. You have 15 minutes. I'm seeing it's 11:11 over here. So you have until 11:26. I might even be nice and give you till 11:27. Just those extra seconds. And go, design, dash.
Let's dash.
All right.
All
I
right.
see. Oh, goodness. So James, as like the entire police force goes past me, what would you do if you were given this challenge?
Oh my gosh. So they can't hear us right now. They have pulled out their headphones or muted us while they get into the design zone. So no tips straight from my mouth to their ears. But if I were in this situation, thinking of blank versus blank, a classic rivalry, well, I'd have to say the first thing that comes to my mind is Spy versus Spy, the classic comic strip. And, that is sort of, black coat spy versus white coat spy, very sort of symmetrical, evenly matched. What can one sort of one faction do against the other, and how would you adapt that sort of symmetrical warfare to D&D? I don't know.
I love that idea. When I was concepting this this theme, I had thought of classic rivalries in D&D specifically, like dragons versus giants, or I don't know, like goblins versus kobolds or something.
Devils versus demons.
Yeah, but I love that you could take inspiration from anything, like from pop culture or literature, and bring that in.
I think that's the best advice that I have for anyone who wants to write D&D or fantasy in general, is think outside of your genre. I think a lot of D&D writers, reading D&D is important to writing D&D. Never discount that. But if you get stuck reading too much fantasy, suddenly you're only going to regurgitate what people have done before you. Bringing in old cartoons, or you watch Casablanca before you start writing a D&D adventure, suddenly that it all gets so much richer.
I see in chat that Ardent Moth says that they agree. Wild Rose Mage offers their own rivalry, Xanathar's Guild versus the Zentarum. I would love to hear from chat what fun rivalries you think would be great for this challenge. Oh my gosh. Pipe cleaner versus bar of soap.
Oh my gosh.
Michael JC4, hello and welcome. They just have to write down their ideas and share them verbally. Yes, so they will be designing likely encounters based off of this theme, and they'll be sharing them, and we'll go through all of them. We'll actually take a peek at everybody's designs in just a second. But before we continue, I want to make sure that chat, I would love for you to help us in judging these encounters. Everybody's a winner on Design Dash, but I think it'd be really fun if, as we spy on everyone's encounters and hear from them, we come up with our own rubric that totally doesn't matter but is fun. Last episode, it was who has the most spoons in their encounter. That was fun. And then if you have questions for our designers, as you see what they're designing, feel free to ask. Put question and all caps in the chat, and we'll ask them for you. Ooh,
I'm thinking of some
kobolds.
Monks versus kobolds. I'm thinking of some arbitrary metrics for judging encounters. We're doing encounters, right? That's for sure what we're doing. Okay, for judging encounters, and I don't know, somewhere along the lines of most spoons. What about? What do you think, Lisa? I'm still turning this one over in my head.
So I'm just reading a few more of the rivalries in the chat. Night owls versus morning birds. Elf versus dwarf. Big B versus Mordenkainen. Pop versus cola. I don't want it to get too controversial. Apples versus oranges. Gate crashers versus gatekeepers. Oh, you all have really good.
This is some good ones.
Yeah. But let's take a peek at some designs now, because I see that folks are definitely getting stuff on the page. And we are going to start with Emily, our returning champ.
All right, champ, what do we got? Ooh. Dreams v Nightmares.
That's very cool. And they've taken that and applied that to some very like wild, whimsical planes of dimension in Dungeons and Dragons. So they've got
Now, Lisa,
Shadowfell versus Feywild.
can the people listening at home see
They
what we're
can.
seeing? Oh,
Yes.
very good. A shared dreamscape when they fall asleep. Yes, this is very nice. I love dreamscape stuff.
I love dreamscape stuff because I like surprising characters, like they've just gone down for a long rest and that's when the encounter happens.
So when you do dreamscape stuff, Lisa, is it if you die in the dream, you die in real life sort of thing, or do they rest assured that if they get punched down to 0 in the dream fight, they'll wake up in a cold sweat perfectly unharmed?
That is a great question. I feel like not every encounter has to be the same. But if dying in the dream is going to affect them in real life, I would want to, as the designer or as the dungeon master, make sure that that's clear to them. Because it's not fun as a player if something really terrible happens to you and you didn't know the stakes.
Yeah.
I think you want it to feel fair.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think who you have as your villain can very much affect that. If a player has, night hags plaguing their dreams or mind flayers plunging them into a nightmare hellscape, then that makes sense. The stakes are high. These are bad creatures. But if it's, I don't know, some churlish summer court fae, then maybe the stakes are a little bit lower.
Yeah. Let's take a peek over at Christopher's design. Let's see what he's been working on. Oh, another, like more of a concept than a specific D&D rivalry. I love that.
Big versus little.
Big versus little. I'm already seeing that there's a halfling village, so I already like it because it's cute.
Is that our rubric for today? Most cutest?
Most cutest. Ooh, let's see. Folks in chat have been busy thinking of things for our rubric. Let's see. Most use of the word versus. Criteria, most rival factions. Why stop at 2? Oh.
I like that.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's going to get that one, but that's very fun.
Albatross Necktie says, goes back to your question about dreams and how they affect you in real life. And he said, if you die in a dream, you get a level of exhaustion. Kind of makes sense if you don't get a restful night's sleep. But if you die 6 nights in a row, you die in real life. Ooh. That's like some ring stuff happening.
Oh, wait, I really like that.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
You just can't get a good night's sleep because these nightmares are kicking your ass. Good. An out-of-work coconut milk processor. Oh my gosh. This is very funny.
I see Chris smiling. I can't tell if it's because he can hear us commenting or because he's amusing himself with his design.
If I were writing this, I'd be giggling to myself the whole time, just to be honest.
Oh no, my dungeon master is in chat
and
has taken Albatross Necktie's suggestion.
Oh no.
What did I ever do to you, chat?
Okay. I think we've seen some really good stuff in Chris's doc, huh?
Yeah. So I'm peeking over at Willy's. I see Willy typing, but I'm not actually seeing it populating in our doc. So I'm going to just send him a little private message, if folks don't mind for a second. To Willy.
Good thinking. Our good friend Willy is probably writing a normal Word doc, something native on his computer. So once we get it into this Google Doc, we'll all be able to see what sort of wonderful, joyous things he's creating.
Yeah. Again, keeping everybody on their toes, transforming into a Word version of his name. All right. I'm gonna peek back over to Emily's so folks can see. Whoa, Emily is being prolific.
Whoa, is she just popping off over here?
Yeah, she's on to part 3.
Whoa. Man, if I could write this fast, I would never be worrying about deadlines.
Oh, I love the name. A dark force, Nanny Glimfear.
Fear.
Who has been controlling the shadows and nightmares of the realm and bringing them here from the Shadowfell. very cool. Very
Over
spooky.
time, the characters realize the landscape and creatures are morphing themselves to fit their actions, such as if they attack a butterfly, the fey creatures become more aggressive. Ooh, this has the potential for some very cute to dark very quickly, sort of a
Yes.
Pan's Labyrinth sort of
Yes.
scenario.
Would spoopy count for the secret rubric most cutest?
Yeah, it's the dark side of our most cutest rubric.
Yeah. Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining. If this is your first time watching Design Dash, we've got 3 folks who have 15 minutes, now more like 5 minutes, to design D&D encounters. And in chat, we're spying on their designs in progress and trying to come up with a secret rubric to score the designs at the end.
Do you have any other folks suggesting rubric ideas in the chat right now?
Well, folks are very impressed with how fast Emily is writing.
Yeah.
Wild Rose Mage says, I am very impressed in all capital letters with Emily. And Albatross Next Tie says, Emily is absolutely a prolific writer. You can kind of tell a returning champion. She knows what's up.
Yeah. No less than we expected from the Design Dash champion.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Banky the Machine says, rubric for cutest campaign. How many Baby Yodas, parentheses, Goblin Sorcerer, would you rate their rivalry? I don't know if we can, if Disney will come after us if we rate based off the other thing you mentioned, but we can do all our ratings in terms of Goblin Sorcerers. Which I think,
legally distinct Goblin Sorcerer,
legally
Baby
distinct
Dio.
Goblin Sorcerers. How many out of 5? And I think that is in line with our most cutest rubric. So the rubric this time is just very adorable. I don't remember why it's very adorable. Did something cute happen? Oh, Christopher's design was very cute. I think that's what brought us over there.
I'd love to see even more specific ideas of cuteness coming up in the chat. What sort of very, very particular cute things can we give bonus points to these contestants for when we look at their final design?
There's some more rubric ideas in the meantime. Regent Putzer says, rubric, how often do I think LOL in my mind, but my face doesn't move? Very specific. It can't be too funny. It just needs to be funny enough that we're willing to LOL.
How often do I sharply exhale from my nose while reading? Yeah.
Ardent Moth says, rubric, how easily could it be dropped into an ongoing campaign as a subplot or secondary arc? That's really a very good
yeah.
like serious rubric idea, which I think is important to have in the rubric. Design Dash, we're not just wild and whimsical. We're also a very serious design competition.
We are here to make sure that you can be as whimsical as you like while still having a coherent and cohesive D&D game. Harder than you think.
Mm-hmm. I've scrolled past it now, so I'm forgetting who in chat said this, but someone suggested cats versus dogs as a classic rivalry, and I believe that their message said something about the characters polymorphing.
Ooh.
Right? Cool.
Now that's fun. Cat versus mouse, also a good one in that vein.
Ooh. Oh, I want to be a mouse. That's cute.
Oh, Lisa, I remember that game where we all played as familiars and you were the cat familiar for a cleric. That was really good.
That was very fun.
Need more.
It's always fun being animals.
Yeah.
Especially like little ones. But actually, like, I guess any animal, like you kind of have your idea of their mannerisms and what their personalities would be, just projecting on them based on what they like look like or their talents or what have you.
Have we seen Willy's design pop up in our Google Doc yet?
Let us take a little peek. Not yet, but I know that he's writing something. So.
Oh wait, hold on a second. Yes, scroll down. It's just a blank front page, but
oh my gosh.
Beneath it.
No peek, Willy.
No peek.
You are full of lies.
So
Most trixiest.
tricks.
Oh my gosh, he's laughing.
We've been bamboozled over here.
I got bamboozled, everyone. I thought we had technical difficulties, and now I don't know what. Yeah, chat is like, wow.
Oh, man.
Oh my god. All right. We're gonna do a little peek at the beginning now that we have discovered the truth. Yeah, Wild Rose Maze betrayal. It is.
I like this Koto going, no peek.
And we've got seconds left. So really, all we can preview this surprise entry is Fox versus Hen ?
Foxes can be Arcanolots. Let's roll with it.
Arcanolots like to be sneaky, a lot like Willy.
Lisa, I don't know about you, but my clock is reading 11:27 right now.
I am seeing 11:27, so we're gonna hop over to our little chat. Okay, time. We're calling time.
Ring-a-ding-a-ding.
Willy looks like he stopped designing, but you know what? Who even knows? Who knows what's true? Chris seems like he
Chris giving us
has
a thumbs
popped
up.
out. What about you, Emily? I'm gonna highlight everything.
Our champion in the zone.
Yep. All right.
Oh, the
I
headphones
didn't even
are
have to
coming
turn
back.
everything red. She saw the threat of the highlight.
I did, and it was terrifying.
I always, in the before chat, I warn folks, if I have to highlight your adventure, there's always a chance that I'm gonna accidentally delete it. So make sure you're paying attention.
This is maybe the most bizarre thing that I have ever. I don't really know what this is. So
I encourage anyone who wants to write D&D stuff to just sort of do this every now and then. Just like think of a prompt and write utter wildness for 15 minutes, and then like look back later and see what is good within the wildness.
Yeah, I think there are probably like 2 or 3 good things here, but the other 30 are not that.
We'll be the judge of that.
Yeah. Chat helped us come up with a lovely rubric. So everyone knows ahead of time. We will be curious whose encounters are most cutest. We will be rating it out of a scale of 5 goblin sorcerers wearing potato sacks.
All right.
We also will be taking a look at whose encounters are most easily dropped into a campaign as sort of like a secondary arc or a side quest.
Probably losing that one.
And was there a third rubric thing that jumped out at you, James, from the chat? Or chat, remind me of rubric things.
I'm not
that
thinking
you
of one.
All right, so we're gonna base off those 2 things, and then maybe I will add one that is just the most betrays. Willy starts with 1, and Willy, we're gonna start with you. So I'm gonna scroll past this lie of a page, past this Kuatoa, who very much looks like he's pulled a successful prank.
Oh,
He really does.
He's like, yes. Over to blank versus blank. So I've got us on page 3, starting with Fox versus Hen ? Willy, walk us through this delightful encounter you've created.
I'm absolutely gonna help you walk through this because it's a mess. I just kind of keep writing, so we'll see what happens.
I feel bad.
But basically, the idea is that the party is requested by a farmer to get his chickens back. I have a note here that the farmer might be McDon the Old, maybe a clown.
Willy.
Come on, it happens. But basically, the entire area is a farming town. So there's a couple of different farms here and there. You can see a speckle of a lizard ranch and maybe even a cow farm off in the distance, but it's going to be pretty easy to get to this next part. A trail of feathers will lead down the road. It might just be like a survival check, very low DC, just to keep them going. But you end up upon this other farm with this ragtag looking fox man in like overalls and a nice sun hat. I think his name is Lachlan. Yeah, there you go. And he's like, yep, I did take those chickens, but I ain't going to give them back to you. And if you try to approach the Arcanoloth, it's an Arcanoloth. He's going to attack you with his flock, and it's not going to be very good. But instead, he offers you a test. There's going to be a total of 2 chickens for every party member in the field, a minimum of 10 chickens that are going to be out there. and he has half of them disguised as cockatrices. And you have to sort the real chickens from the cockatrices into 2 different coops. There are 2 wooden coops. The inside is pitch black, as if there was magical darkness inside. You'll hear a lot of weird murmurs and creaks, because possibly one of them might be a mimic. So if you put the chickens into the wrong coop, they might just get eaten. And at that point, I'm saying that you have to roll for initiative. And basically each round, you're going to go up and investigate each of these chickens, check their color, temperament, and oddities to see if it is a real chicken or a fake chicken. One of them might even be an abyssal chicken just for the hell of it. And if a player ends up guessing this one wrong, it's going to follow that player to the ends of the earth. You know, just as a little pet to bring back with you. In the middle of you investigating all these chickens, the chicken or cockatrice might start attacking one another or might start pecking at you, which might be a quick giveaway as to what's what. But at the end of the entire encounter, once you have like sorted most of these chickens apart, it turns out that neither of the coops is a mimic, and he was just messing with you entirely. And if you get most of them right, Laughlin's all like, you know what? Sure, you can have your chickens and bring them back. And he's literally just trying to get his own start as a farmer to feel the simple life. And that's his entire motivation for being this kind of thief. So you bring the chickens back over to McDon the Olds, and you get 2 gold per chicken saved. I originally wanted to make it like copper because they are kind of farmers, but it's all right. It's supposed to seem like a paltry amount. But then you notice that the coop looks weird. And actually, it's McDon's coop that is the mimic.
No.
Oh, that's a betrayal. Chalk 1 betrayal.
Yep.
1 betrayal.
So McDon's life is ruined, but the mimic spits up a glimmering chicken pearl, which is going to be a magical item, which you have to attune to. And then basically you can summon a swarm of chickens as if it were spiritual guardians to attack your targets. And when you do so, you hear the sound of Arcanoloth laughter.
Oh my gosh.
Oh. Wait, so McDon's life is ruined, but then you keep the magical item?
Sure.
Oh, McDon, tragedy.
Poor McDon. I feel very bad for this farmer now.
I mean, you could try to get his life back together. There are future sort of hooks here, like, oh, okay, we need to start a new farm for McDon, or hey, he didn't give us enough money, so we might as well leave him in the dirt. It depends on the alignment of the party.
Fair.
I'm pretty upset with chat right now because Banky the Machine said instead of a paltry amount, they're a poultry amount.
Ooh, that's good.
Haha, I'll see myself out. You do that, Banky. Let's see. Well, chat, if you have any questions for Willy as we ask questions, put question in all capital letters so it jumps out at us and we can easily pull that and ask. My first question doesn't really have to do with design or anything. I'm just wondering, half of them are disguised as cockatrices. Are they magically disguised, or has the Arcanoloth done some arts and crafts?
Let's see. Odds are it might be a polymorph or it might be an illusion. It depends on the party itself. Like if you know you have some sneaky wizards in there, you go for the less obvious route.
And then I guess my next question is, so you've left a placeholder here for this table of tells for each chicken.
Yes.
And I imagine populating an entire table would have been quite time consuming. But did you have any examples that popped into your head of what you might have put in the table?
So for color, you would have possibly white, black, red, purple, green, you know, some weird colors that are in there for chickens, but oh, hey, it might just be a dirty chicken for some reason. Temperament, usually chickens can get pretty mean unless you actually know a chicken itself. So most likely that's just going to be an entire table filled with angry, 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 angry. And then oddities, like maybe this one has a cut up wattle, or this one's tail feathers are super sharp, or this one is giving off a weird gas as it breathes. Just in general, a bunch of different ideas for each chicken. That you can roll ahead of time to prep for this campaign.
Very fun. I love having chicken motivation.
Yeah. Chickens. James, would you say chickens are cute? Like, how many goblin sorcerers of most cutest would this encounter receive?
I mean, that's a good question. It really depends on the kind of chicken, but if we're being generous here, these are, really fluffy, silky looking chickens, the kind of chickens that you'd really want to look at. And I would say I think we can give a safe, I don't know, 3.5, 3.5 out of 5 Goblin Sorcerer cutenesses
Yeah.
for these chickens.
I think a 3.5 seems around what I was thinking, especially because you might get a pet chicken, and pets, I think, always get cute points.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Let's see. We do have questions from the chat. So
Okay.
Willy, Albatross Necktie would like to know, what level should the party be at for this adventure?
So I was imagining sort of a tier 1 adventure, although if you're dealing with cockatrices, it might be a little bit tough. So let's say it's tier 2. So you're still willing to help out like a nice little farmer. So probably around level 8 or 9 might be appropriate here.
All right, 8 or 9. James, would you rate this in Goblin Sorcerers of how easy this would be to drop into an ongoing campaign?
Oh, in terms of ease, I think this is a great one to drop into an ongoing campaign. This is a very encounter of the week sort of feel to it. You're walking by the nearest town as you're passing by Daggerford or Phandalin or some such, and you run into McDon the Old with his chicken problem. Yeah, 5 out of 5. Legally distinct Goblin Sorcerers.
All right. Yeah. I feel like, how many times are you doing travel montages or like traveling from city to city? How much more fun would it be if you got to just run around like catching chickens and and trying to determine their temperaments? We have another question here from Landis the Thief. They ask, were there thoughts of throwing a random rooster in there disguised as a chicken as another bamboozle? Also, do roosters count as chickens?
One more betrayal.
Yeah, I mean, if we end up throwing in a random rooster, it'll probably end up trying to wrangle up its own chickens. So that might be a good clue as to which ones are the real chickens and which ones are the cockatrices. Although if it gets into a fight with a cockatrice, it's probably going to lose. So
Yeah.
a quick hint.
Yeah, that thing's stoned.
All right. Did you have any other questions for Willy, or should we move on to Chris's design?
Oh no, I think I've gotten everything I need to out of this one.
All right, Willy. We'll see where we went up at the end with this rubric, but we're sitting at 3.5 most cutest and 5 droppable into another campaign. We'll have to come up with a catchier way to say that. But hopping over to Chris's design and scrolling
Thank
to
you,
the top.
Willy.
Yeah, thanks, Willy.
Thank you.
Chris, talk to us about big versus little.
Yeah, so this kind of came out to be something more like a adventure background with some ideas of how to, I guess, hook players in toward the end. I think I didn't realize how short 15 minutes is, which I know that's what everybody's been saying, but this is a pretty ridiculous idea around a halfling village that's been, untouched, undiscovered from, society. They've lived in like peace and harmony on some tropical area in whatever world it is that you want to use. They have like this forbiddance from their religious leaders or political leaders, or however it is that you'd want to kind of frame it, to not scale this mountain or this cliffside that they're near, because they fear that their gods or ancestors, maybe, again, like however you want to frame it, can't see them there because of the height differential. So at one point, a out of work coconut milk like processor or coconut farmer maybe finds some sort of magic item, washed up on shore. Had a couple ideas, like, it could maybe just be like your standard like wand, or you could go a little more, I guess, like gonzo, if you want to use that word. You can introduce, like science fantasy or something like that. And this thing enlarges this coconut milk processor or maybe a coconut farmer into a giant halfling. They use they use the next couple of weeks or months maybe to form kind of a cult around themselves, and they kind of propagate the idea that the consumption of coconuts or coconut milk or both led to this, obviously hiding the true cause of all of this. This now giant halfling who is kind of positioned or been thrown into the position of godhood is able to peer over the cliffside, notices there's a city of like tall folk there, and puts out a call to them to come help. And this is where the PCs would come in, because this now giant halfling. This is really ridiculous now that I like. I'm like, this is just
I'm so into this story.
This is just so ridiculous now. It's coming out of my mouth.
You're saying it's so straight-faced, though. That's what really matters.
I'm sorry. What'd you say, James?
You're saying it so straight-facedly, though. That's what really
that's
matters.
about to fall away, though, I think. So, but anyways, so this is where the PCs come in, and I kind of envision it being. I guess this is really much broader than an encounter. It's almost like a campaign opener almost, or at least a series of adventures where do the PCs want to engage in kind of working with this giantized halfling to kind of bring this cult and perhaps the village to heal, and kind of set them up as like tyrant coconut god? I don't know. And or do they want to try to overthrow its deception, its deceit there, and try to undo what this this bumbling halfling has done to themselves. So like I said, it's not about halfway through this, I've realized that I should probably have had this more of a standalone encounter and less of like what you would think of as like a adventure background section. But by that time, probably a solid 8 or 9 minutes had passed. I was like, well, this is the train I'm on. So
Just gotta power forward.
Yeah, there's no getting off now.
I will say though, I am here for this coconut cult campaign.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's good.
Beautiful.
All right. So chat has so much to say. Mostly they're trying to name the coconut cult. TK has joined the fray, says cult conut. Wild Rose Mage also proposes Cocoa Cult. Chat is
I like
now
Cocoa
voting.
Wild Rose Mage.
I'm plus winning Cocoa Cult. It kind of sounds like a chocolate cult, but that's okay because chocolate and coconut also go well together.
They sure do.
It throws them off. Like if anyone's pursuing the cult, they're like, "Oh, what is it actually about?"
Yeah. Like I wonder if there's some sort of like dark secret, or really it's just coconuts. Which leads us to a question from chat, and we'll lead with that. Albatross Necktie asking lots of good questions today. Thank you, Albatross. They ask, why coconuts?
I have no idea. It's just a word.
Coconut.
It's just a word that came into my head. I don't know. And then now I'm on like some look into myself of why did my brain produce coconut. I have a young son, and he just recently discovered that he loves coconuts, or coconut, not like the nut, I guess itself. But
Has he tried
so I don't know.
galloping like a
Maybe
horse
that's
yet?
why. Sorry, what'd you say?
Has he tried galloping like a horse yet?
Yes, he gallops like a horse most of the time. But I don't know. Yeah.
Oh my! I'm just reading chat and getting like very angry, but also delighted at everything everyone is saying about coconuts. Coconuts are just like a very fun thing, and I like that like they were maybe top of mind because your child is into coconut right now, and kind of speaks to what James was saying at the beginning, that you can draw inspiration for D&D design from everything. And look at how delighted everyone is that it's like randomly about coconuts. They've latched onto that. I feel like you could make a whole campaign about something that seems ridiculous.
Too often, players latch on to one silly thing the DM throws away. It's high time the DMs started latching on to one silly throwaway thing that their brains came up with.
Yes.
Yes.
This campaign is
Clowns
about
and
coconuts.
I feel like saying that typically my like design stuff is not this bizarre and random, but 15 minutes is not a lot of time at all. So
We have a bunch of questions, not necessarily about the design, but people are just very invested in this world now.
Questions.
So they have specific questions about it. Kimbo Timbo
Great, let's hear 'em.
24 wants to know, maybe you added this, but is the giant halfling normal sized or giant compared to a human?
No, giant compared to a human, because it can see over this cliffside. Like we're talking like gargantuan size, to use D&D terminology. Although, to be honest, I really like the idea that it's really not giant at all. It's just human sized. I really like that. So that would maybe be a lot funnier. And if the cliffside wasn't really a cliff, it was just like a slightly impassable hill. So.
Yes, please.
Oh my god.
Raken Putzer wants to know, can we enlarge coconuts and halflings live in them? Oh, that's cute.
I think that's probably the ultimate route to financial success for this cult. Yes, is to enlarge coconuts and make them into halfling houses, and really break into the coconut real estate market. I think that's probably, that sounds really reasonable to me.
Ooh, a good question. Albatross Necktie wants to know, if the party fights against the Coco cult, what kind of stats would you use for the cultists? 'Cause they're not normal cultists.
So I really like the idea that they could somehow summon a shower of coconut milk rain, and potentially just like upset your stomach for massive coconut milk intake. I think that's what I'm going for. But there should also be like the very, very fitness obsessed halflings who are really into coconut water. So.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, people want to expand on this coconut-based world. Wild Rose Mage asks what happens if you make the coconuts into a potion. Ardent Moth says, ooh, new warlock patron, the Great Coconut.
Sounds great to me, sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I could see like some good like AC bonuses for, a coconut like bark skin or something.
I can see all sorts of
coconuts on people.
Yeah. I can see the opportunity for plenty of Alice in Wonderland, giganto, tiny shenanigans going on here, right? Like, what do you have when you've got a house cat sized Tarrasque that's been shrunk somehow by all of this? You've got
big halfling. Oh. Which actually, my reaction is bringing me back to the rubric, James, because this is a serious show with a rubric and rules for sure.
Well, sorry about that, then.
How would you rate this? And chat, chime in as well. What would we rate this on our rubric scale of most cutest?
Most cutest. I'd say it's got the potential for some cuteness. We have a bunch of little halflings, the halfling village. They harvest coconuts, for goodness sake. I think that alone gives us a good level of baseline cuteness. But I think the way that this adventure kind of develops in concept gets to be a little bit more kind of creepy in its buck wildness. So I'm going to put it at 2.5 Goblin Sorcerers of cuteness.
2.5 Goblin Sorcerers.
What do you
I was
think,
going to
Lisa?
give it 4 Goblin Sorcerers, but I also think that I am projecting cuteness onto it. Like, I'm imagining like they've got like little like coconut hats or masks or something. Wild Rose Mage also asks, but can't creepy also be cute? I agree. And we had agreed that Spoopy was double cute, I think.
That is true.
Ardent Moth says, I see a solid 4, them rosy cheeks. Oh my gosh. Jeff Stevens is in chat and asks, Chris, can we use this for an encounter in the Savage Coconut supplement?
Absolutely, Jeff. Yes.
Very good.
I will acquiesce to four cuteness.
All right, we've got 4 cuteness. How many betrayals would you say there are?
I don't feel particularly betrayed by this
Yeah,
one.
and maybe half a betrayal, because it seems like the Coco cult either has betrayed their leader or they feel betrayed by their leader.
Yeah.
And then how would you rate this on a scale of droppability into an existing campaign?
So I was thinking about this one from the very beginning. And honestly, the more we talk about it, the lower I think it's getting.
This is its own world, its own multiverse.
Yep.
Oh yeah, this should be like a 0. This should be. I mean,
this is a new campaign setting.
A new campaign setting. Wild coconut. I love it. All right. Let's hop over to our returning champ, Emily. Thank you, Chris. Emily,
Yes.
talk to us about dreams versus nightmares.
Ooh.
So I wrote 6 pages and I definitely remember some of it.
And to write that fast in only 15 minutes, I can't imagine what's got to be racing through your head to do all that.
That's a talent.
A lot of stuff that I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I was like, I can't physically write it. And I just put it away. But yeah, so dreams versus nightmares, kind of like in D&D universe, Shadowfell versus Feywild classic, like how they interact with each other. So essentially I did very like AL CCC structure. Call to action is that all the adventurers, wherever they are in the world, fall asleep. And when they wake up, they essentially wake up in a dreamscape as they have fallen asleep and are dreaming, but they see all of their fellow party members there. And it's very much Feywild. Like, it's very colorful, very vibrant. There's like all of these like little critters flying around, like tiny little jellyfish floating through the air, fish with butterfly wings, rabbits with antlers, all that kind of stuff. That's very like ethereal and different. And as they're kind of exploring this world, they find that similar to like the astral plane, they actually have the ability to influence and kind of like put their own will onto the world. And, you know, they can fly using their minds. They can create changes around them. But they also realize that there are incursions from the Shadowfell that are kind of seeping into the area. So at one point they get ambushed by these like nightmarish shadows that kind of just appear out from underneath some plants, wherever they're investigating in the world, and attack them. And as it's very like exploration heavy. So they're kind of like exploring and finding all these like weird things that are off with, it's very like beautiful and ethereal, but also a little bit creepy. With a little bit of
mushrooms.
Horror. Yeah, creepy mushrooms, a little horror thrown in. And as it goes on, it kind of becomes less like a utopia, more like dystopia, as these shadows that they encounter begin to kind of like tap into their own fears, their own nightmares, their own terrors, and manifest them physically in the world around them. Very cool. Rereading what I wrote. So after they've been exploring for a while, there is a Eladrin mystical they-them person who comes up to the party and essentially says that they have drawn the characters into this world for help. That there has been this darkness that has been infiltrating this corner of the Feywild. And the darkness itself is actually corrupting the creatures and turning them into more darkness and more nightmares and more shadows, and slowly killing off this area. She tells them that there is a creature that is able to control and manifest these nightmares that is hidden somewhere in the spookiest part of the spookiest woods inside of the Feywild, and they essentially need to travel inside and find her and defeat her in order to save the land and also to wake up, because at this point the characters have realized that they are trapped here. And as they travel, and there's all this darkness around them, and it's getting, you know, worse and worse as they get closer to Nanny Glimfear. The nightmares themselves, at the beginning of the game, you would basically say, like, what are your greatest fears? What are your character's greatest terrors? And the shadows and nightmares would actually manifest to the characters looking like their terrors. So it's not just a combat when they encounter these creatures. There's some kind of like description, storytelling of like how they're flooded by these fears. Like if your greatest fear is heights and falling, the shadows wash around the world around you. You lose sight of your companions. You can't make contact with anyone, and you have to make some sort of charisma or insight checks to be able to see the nightmares for what they are, as just like your own fears and not actual threats. Or risk different kinds of madnesses that can seize you and kind of warp your character's sense of reality. And so they continue onward. They have some of these encounters. And eventually they reach the center of the forest where they find the big bad, who is Nanny Glimfear. And she has she's a classic night hag, able to like manifest darkness and shadows and terror and all that kind of thing. And also has legendary lair actions where she can actually warp reality, change the terrain, change like physical areas inside of the world, and kind of send her minions to seize and try to control the minds and overwhelm the characters with different types of terror and madness during the combat. And then once they defeat her, they're able to claim her Heartstone, which, as the shadows kind of fade away and the magic of the Feywild washes back over, transforms it into a glimmering, multicolored stone that is a luck stone, and has retains some of its cool Feywild properties, in that whoever's holding it, the stone actually changes colors with their mood, kind of like
it's a mood ring.
Yeah,
I love
mood
it.
stone. And after they defeat her, the characters all kind of like fade into unconsciousness, and they wake up thinking, that was a strangely vivid dream. And they reach under their pillow and they find that same stone underneath it.
I really loved like the atmosphere that you've set up for this encounter. And the end battle, especially with those lair actions, sounds like it could be very, very epic. It reminds me of, I'm blanking on the name of the villain, but the most recent Spider-Man movie, except that was illusory.
Oh, Mysterio.
Yeah,
Mysterio.
it feels very like Mysterio's battle with Spider-Man.
Yeah, there was one CCC adventure that I've seen called The Girl Who Forged Worlds, and it's essentially there's this girl who's trapped inside of a demi-plane because she is able to like shape reality with the power of her deity, and it's kind of like pulling off of that a little bit. I really like the concept of someone who can just like shape the world around their will.
That sounds delightful. I'm Googling that right now.
Yeah.
Chat seems very into this encounter. Let's see. TK says there's some small part of me that was hoping they'd find a tooth under the pillow. Scooter Beast
tooth-shaped.
says this is a Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, and I'm 100% here for it. Grinning Grig says you could have fun warping what the adventurers say their greatest fears are if they try to think of something else. Thinking of Ghostbusters.
That's true.
Yeah.
I gotta say, this the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about this adventure is that I am astounded by the amount of specificity and clarity that has come out of this adventure in so short a time. It's really fantastic, just in like all of the distinct parts from beginning, middle to end. It all feels very cohesive right off the bat.
Yeah.
And it even includes chalk one up betrayal when they realize that this beautiful utopia dream world is not all it seems to be.
Yes. I'd also say I would give this, we've already awarded a 5 out of 5 dropping into a campaign, but I feel like this is a 5.5 because everyone rests, right? You don't have to be traveling between places. Everyone has to take a rest eventually. And like we mentioned, while everyone was designing, I love the idea of surprising people with an encounter when they think that they're safe. TK, please do not take that. Do not take that.
Suggestion.
But as we come up at the 12 o'clock mark, the end of Design Dash, let's quickly, we've talked about betrayal, we've talked about ease of use in a campaign. How many cutes would you rate this, James?
Ooh, so we got to talking about Spoopy being the dark side of cute when looking at this adventure in early days. So it's definitely got a good baseline of it. I would say from the mushrooms and butterflies at the beginning to the mood ring luckstone at the end, I would give it a 4 out of 5 cuteness.
All right, a 4 out of 5 cute. I would give it, while I think Spoopy can be cute, and I thought the mushrooms were kind of cute. I don't know why. I think it's because someone in chat mentioned myconids. I would give this a 3.5.
Okay.
Cute. So we'll give it an average of 3.75 goblin sorcerers wearing potato sacks.
Very specific rubric we've got here.
Yes. So everyone, again, if this is your first time watching Design Dash, then head over to @DMS_guild. In a few minutes, as we wrap up this show, I'm going to go put up the poll, and you can vote for who comes back next week to take on 2 new challengers. We're going to do some quick outros before we throw over to Dragon Talk, which everyone should stay tuned for. Willy, who have you been? How can people find you?
I'm Willy. You can probably find me on Twitter as @TheWillyBoo. And yeah, come talk to me.
Yeah, and I'd say, Willy, you are our most betrayalist champion based on our rubric. Christopher, I believe that you are #1 most cutest.
I have never won that before in my life, but let's see. You can find me at DM Christopher W, which I'm pretty sure is next to my name up here. Also, I've got some stuff in the DMs Guild. And yeah, always happy to talk games and anything else for the most part.
Wonderful. And Emily, returning champ, most easily used in another campaign encounter champion.
Most adaptable.
Thank you. Oh my
Finally,
God,
it's the end, but we got it.
Yeah.
We're so close. Yeah, I'm Emily. Emily JEA Smith, pretty much everywhere. I've got stuff on DMs Guild. We all do. It's great. You should check it out.
Yeah.
Don't want to run over. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and James, you, I would say, our best co-host.
Thank you. You, Lisa, our best host, and all of you, all 3 of you, are my favorite Design Dash contestants ever.
I've been Lysa Penrose, community manager of Dungeon Masters Guild. My social media here is a lie. Find me at Lysa Penrose and all the places. James, thank you so much for joining as co-host, filling in for Matt this week. Where can folks find you?
Yes, I have been and will continue to be James Haeck. You can find me at James J. Haeck on Twitter. You can read my articles on D&D Beyond, and you can find the stuff I've written for the Guild Adepts on the DMs Guild. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, we'll see you next month, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.